Okay, everyone. Thank you for joining. Um, sorry for coming on a little late today. We've been doing some work over here, preparing for Lag Bomer. We're going to continue the discourse we began last week, and the explanation Biur Bechukosei. The class last week. You can listen to part 1, our engraved written Torah. This is going to be part 2. We were talking about 2 levels. Heshi, here, you can connect this just to the charger. Yeah. We were talking about 2 levels in the letters of the Torah. That the levels of the Torah are in written letters, and the letters of the Torah are in engraved letters. The written letters is the Torah itself, like a Sefer Torah, like a book of the Torah. Torah scroll. The letters are written, and the other letters, the engraved letters, are the letters of the tablets of the luchot, and these are 2 dimensions of the Torah evolving and coming to us. Engraved letters are much deeper letters than written letters, because when you have a written letter, the letter and the ink and the ink and the object in which the letters are on are 2 separate entities. They become attached and they become fused with each other. And the way we discussed it last week, what it means is that the parchment that is clear dresses itself in the ink. In other words, it's as if the parchment is enclothing itself in the ink, but the ink is already something other than the parchment. It's like a garment is separated from a person. A person dresses himself in it. So the ink is, and the form of the letter is a garment that in which the parchment, the simple, clear, clean whiteness of the parchment expresses itself through the letters. But then there is a much deeper level. There is the engraved letter. And the engraved letter, the letters and the stone in which they're engraved are one. There's no 2 things. It's not an enclothement in something else. And we learned the same idea exists also. That's a physical example. The same thing also exists psychologically in the inner world of the soul. We also can detect within ourselves such letters. There is letters of speech, which the letters of speech are like written letters, because when we talk, when we express ourselves through words, one of the examples he doesn't even give, but it's the most external example of it, is there's written letters. So when you write the letters, of course, we understand that the letters are not your soul. The written letter is using ink. It's using substances that are not you. Let's regress a minute. When a person is whenever you're speaking, whenever you're emanating, every emanation that we emanate to the world, to the surrounding, is through words. Without words, we don't express ourselves. So we're always expressing ourselves through words. But the words, which means words are emanations of our soul. But yet, when those words are being put into the written form, the actual letters are something added. It's not the soul itself, because you're putting ink on a paper. That's not you. Now, how about when we are speaking words? Over here, it's nothing other than you. It's a spoken word. It's not written. It's just spoken. But it's also not the soul, purely the soul, because you're utilizing breath. Breath is not your soul. So it's coming from your body, so it's closer to you, but even your body is not your soul. So when the fact that the letters of speech are utilizing breath, which creates the voice, the sound, so here already there is something other than you. So it's also called it would be like written letters. It would be like letters that are written, not engraved. Then there's letters of thought. Letters of thought are more refined. and more, there's no breath there. And therefore, the letters of thought, we would think that's the engraved letter. The soul itself is the letter. But he explained that even letters of thought is made up of something other than the soul. Last week you were saying brain neurons and so on and so forth, which are part of the thinking experience. The very fact that we can sense those letters and hear those letters, that means when you're thinking them, you can hear words, is a sign that it's not the pure letters of the soul. It's the soul's, it's your letters that you have inside of you, because we all embedded inside of us are the 22 letters, because all languages, even other than Hebrew, every language in the world uses the same essential letters. It's just formulated in a different way. So these are very, very deep letters coming from a very deep place in the human experience, meaning it's etched in the human soul, not in an animal soul, but in a human soul. There is the nefesh hamedaberes, it's a soul that speaks. So the letters come from a very deep place. But letters of thought are not the pure essential letters of your soul. The letters of thought is the letters of your soul enclothing themselves in some substance as well. And that's why you can hear yourself talking when you're thinking. But that's only the lower thought. There's a higher level of thought. Remember last week we learned is the difference of the thoughts of Tavuna, Leah and Rachel. Leah is a type of thought. But then there is a higher level of thought, the thought of Bina. That was when you're deeply comprehending a concept, you're understanding something. Over there, you're not hearing so much words. You're hearing an idea. But it's impossible that you're conceiving a concept without words. Everything is words. But over there, the words are so subtle because there's no external material there. It's so subtle, those words, that all you hear is the energy of the soul. You don't even sense the words. Ooh, that would be already a little bit of an example. We're beginning to touch the engraved letters, where the soul and the letters are one. The power of the intellect is one. In other words, the letters are of the intellect itself. It's not an external element. But then he said that even that is not the pure essential letters of the soul. It's not the real level of engraved. Why? Because even the intelligence is not the soul. This intelligence is one of the powers of the soul. The letters go even deeper than intelligence. The pre-intelligence, where all concepts come from, the pre-intellect, the koach hamaskil, the power of haskalah that produces concept, that produces ideas, that abstract power. Over there, every revelation, as it's coming to emanate, it's coming outward to reveal itself, it already has letters. But over there, the letters are nothing other than the soul itself. So these are the letters in Keter, in the crown, where there is all we have is the oisiyos. The letters are like the essence expressing itself in words. See, understand something. Even when you make letters, when you engrave letters on a precious stone that we discussed last week, on a precious stone, the place of the engravement, in the place where the letters are engraved, the light is a little dimmer. Meaning the stone is not so bright, not so shining, not so sparkling. That means that you've already stepped, the stone has stepped down a grade. Although you didn't add anything other than the stone. But the fact that the stone has now carved itself out in a certain shape, as opposed to the soul being completely free and unlimited, the very idea of a letter is already a contraction. It is a contraction. It's not as pure and as simple as it is before. But what contracted? The essence contracted. There's nothing other than the essence. And that's the concept which we're going to learn now. And in the soul, it's when there is your soul before there's any letters. But every soul has 22 essential letters, which every movement of expression in the soul comes through those letters. In the earliest stages of those letters, the letters are pure soul, pure essence of soul, just the soul with its inherent engravements, which God allows the soul, therefore, to express itself. As the experience comes outward, these letters dress themselves in more external letters. Just like when you can take a speech, and you have, just like the difference between speech and writing. When you're speaking, it's almost you can sense that these are the letters are my soul. It's nothing other than me. But once I'm writing those letters down, it's completely separated from you. It's words on a paper, and the paper is not you. The ink is not you. It's all separated from you. But what did you write in your book? You write on your book the speech that you gave and the thoughts that you thought. So it's the inner letters that are now enclothing itself in in a garment of other letters. That's the way it is. So the farther the letters go out into the more outer state, the more they need to be transmitted to the outside of the person, the more the letters need to become separate and defined and other than you. And that's how you bring it out. The same process he's going to explain is in the divine. We're holding now by where he's going to start explaining it, how this works in the divine. Chapter Gimel, Perek Gimel. Now it's Thursday night. Chaim, Shmu Chaim. Oh, did you make me happy? Hine. Hashikik was the tzurda. This is for this we have to say l'chaim. After it has been explained, inyan oisias hakika v'oisias aksiva. After it has been explained, the letters of engravement. I feel like something engraved just came in. Me and Shmuel Chaim were engraved. This is so beautiful. He hasn't been here for 5 years, but he used to be here every Thursday night. This. After we explained the concept of the engraved letters, and the written letters, what's the difference between them? B'mashal Gashmi, when we gave a physical example, and we also explained the difference between them in the spiritual. But in the letters of the soul, we're going to understand all of this a little bit. We're going to find how this all applies in the metaphor above. When we're going to trace the root of the tablets, because the tablets were engraved letters. The Torah we know is one with God, but the tablets represent the Torah when the Torah is still utterly divine engravements in God. It's nothing other than Him. As the Torah merges closer to our reality, God garbs it in ideas that are part of our realm, part of our world. It's really His ideas, his world, but He's garbing it in something other than Himself so that it can be more relatable to a finite, limited creation. Only when Mashiach will come will we study the Torah from the Luchot. Then we're not going to read the Torah off the scrolls. We're going to see, and whenever we're going to learn in Torah, we're going to experience the Torah on the engraved letters. All right. So he explains, they are engraved and carved out. We'll understand what their quality is over the written Torah. When the Torah is written, because it is known. What are letters above? Like it says, it says, with the word of Hashem, the heavens were created. God created the world with speech. So you see, there's speech. So there was letters above as well. What is the content of God's words? His speech is obviously not like our speech. So we have to look at everything. We have to look at it at its core. What is divine speech? What is human speech? When we strip away the externalities of human speech and we get to its core essence, that we can apply to God as well. What's the essence of speech? Revelation. Through speech, you reveal yourself. So why do you have to reveal yourself through speech? Because to reveal yourself, you can't transmit an energy with its full potency because you're going to shatter the vessels. If I have to, it's like when a person has something very intense to say to someone else. What do they have to do? You say, you want to sit down with you, let's talk. And when you talk and you can break it up into pieces, then it's easier to transmit because you're breaking it into, or else, you just bang, it's like, wow, it's too much. So the letters help reveal something. So godliness transmits the otherwise infinity of God transmitting to the world. So there is the letters, which are like bite-sized pieces of that revelation. You put the pieces together, and that's how you can construct and reveal. Right? The letters are all the concept of revelation. God reveals himself through letters. It's related to the Hebrew word of otiyot. In Hebrew, why do you say letters? Otiyot, letters. The word oisios, which is the word of letters, comes from the word asa. Asa means it is coming. It is revealing itself. Like you say, asa boker, morning is coming. The light is coming. So something that is hidden, concealed, and we have no access to, but through the oisios, it comes to us. It emerges. Now, just like by us, there is letters of speech and letters of thought. By God as well, there is levels of speech and levels of thought, which means when Hashem reveals into a more distant place, it's through speech. When he reveals into a more inner space, it's through thought. Just like when we use the letters of thought when we reveal something to ourselves, but when I want to reveal something outside of me, I need to use letters of speech. There's the letters of speech. Now, God's letters of speech create heaven and earth, but which heaven and earth? The revealed heaven and earth. Which means, what do you mean the revealed heaven and earth? In mysticism, it explains that there's two levels of worlds. There's the revealed worlds and the concealed worlds. The difference between them is that the revealed worlds are revealed outside of God. Meaning to say, when you're seeing those worlds, you're seeing a world, you're not seeing God. You're seeing time and space, you're seeing substance. And God is hidden inside those worlds, but what is revealed is the world. Then there are a much deeper level of worlds, where the worlds are submerged in God. You don't see the world so much because you feel the divine energy creating it much more. So the worlds are lost in godliness. So that would be the difference between speech and thought. Because speech transmits your energy outside of you, and thought keeps the energy inside you. So when God creates through speech, it means he reveals himself to something outside of him, which means to create an outside of him, a more revealed world. And when God is thinking, he's also creating worlds. He's releasing his energy, but so to speak, within him, inside him. So those worlds exist inside God, which means they feel themselves completely within the divine. They don't feel themselves separate. Obviously, we live in the revealed world. That's why we can, God forbid, sometimes doubt or question or whatever, because we're outside. There's the levels of speech. That brings into existence and enlivens the revealed worlds. And then there's letters of thoughts that enliven and bring into existence the concealed worlds. However, just like we learned earlier that speech is considered a garment, because the letters are garbed in breath, which breath is already an outside substance. And even in thought, the letters are not the pure essential, not the soul itself. The soul is already camouflaging or picking up something other than itself in order for it to be just thinking. It has to get a little thicker. It has to get a little denser for those letters to be picked up. So therefore, even thought is called a garment. In other words, God is revealing himself to those worlds through a garment. To the revealed worlds for sure, and even to the concealed worlds where he's just thinking them into existence. Even there, he's wearing already a clothing. He's not just giving them a treatment to his essential letters because he would destroy them completely. Even the concealed worlds, the worlds of hidden angels and souls, even they would melt completely if God would treat them to, God will expose to them himself without a garment. So he's utilizing something outside of him. Again, he creates those garments, and it's really, ultimately everything is him, but to us, it's a garment on covering on him. Both of them are called garments, just like it is down here below. Just like below. There is a spiritual, every time I'm thinking, we're saying something. You're saying a concept, an idea, like we're doing at the share now. We're sharing a concept, an idea. So the idea, the essential there is the essential idea, and that idea has words in it, very, very, very lofty words, which you don't feel. But when those were, but in order to transmit it, you're putting into words, into physical words, and the physical words, which are the breath, are enclothing the spiritual letters. They're like physical vessels for a spiritual letter, right? It's designed to match. And even when you're thinking, there you're picking up a more refined garment, but it's still a garment to this that's enclothing this the essential letters of the intelligence. So as he says, the breath, malbish, it dresses, the form of the letters, so are the garments, in order that the worlds should be able to receive the chayos, in order for the worlds to be able to tolerate the energy, it needs to go through a garment. You have another copy? It's like the letters it's like written letters. Because by written letters, what are we using? We're using external ink, whatever, the ink, the thing, are covering on the essential letters. But there is also a much deeper level. The letters of engraved. What? Page 8 on the top. Yeah, second paragraph. But then there is much deeper letters. These are the letters of engravement. This is what is spoken about in the beginning of Zohar. The beginning of Zohar, the Kavod Rashbi, in honor of Lag BaOmer. What does it say in the beginning of Zohar? In the beginning of the will of the king. It's not all the way in the beginning. It's page 15 in the Zohar, the first page. It says in the beginning of the will of the king. That means when God has a will to create the worlds, what did he do first? Golif glifu b'tahara ilah. He engraved engravings in the supernal purity. What does that mean? Obviously, what does it mean? We will. But what do we think it means? And the way it's explained in the Chassidus knows what it means, but that in the initial Ein Sof, in the infinity, in the pure infinity of God, there's no worlds, there's no shapes, there's no forms, there's all there is pure infinity, boundlessness of God. The first thing, as God is like willing a creation, he sketches in himself a sketch. What does that mean? He's carving himself out with a certain will. So it's a carving inside of him. There's nothing else but him. It's an internal image that he's imaging in himself of the world. Pidish tahari. What does it mean? Tiru ilah. That's what he calls it. Tiru ilah. What does it mean? The supernal purity. It's the revelation of a radiance Ein Sof. There is the Ein Sof himself. The Ein Sof himself is beyond revelation. It's just who he is in a concealed essential state. That's the Ein Sof. Then there is his emanation when he reveals. He reveals his infinity. He radiates his infinity. The light emanating from him. Which light is it? It's infinite light, because it's an expression of an infinite being. So it's an infinite light. So in the light that is emanated from him, over there is where the carving takes place to begin a process of definable existence. Meloshin, and that's the meaning of Meloshin. The word tohar is Meloshin ke'etzem hashamayim l'tohar. It comes from the words, the tape is also in the back. Ke'etzem hashamayim, like the essence of the heaven, l'tohar, to purity. The essence of the heaven is what? What's the essence of the heaven? Which means a clear sky, like the clarity of the sky to its, that a blue sky. It's pure. So imagine the infinite expanse of the Ein Sof. And what does it mean that Hashem carved? What does it mean Hashem carves out? That Hashem already, what does that mean? That Hashem brings forth parts of Atik Yoimin. He brings forth the configuration of the Ancient of Days. The Arech Anpin and the long face of the Ein Sof. What does that mean? So we know that we discuss in many places that there is the Sefirot, the attributes, and above them is the Keser, the crown, which is compared to the Sefirot is Ein Sof. But even higher than the what's called Keser is, I'm sorry. He's talking now, that's the level of Keser. So what's Keser? Keser is the what we might say is the substance of godliness from which all Sefirot will emanate. So the Sefirot are like emanations from Keser. So what's Keser acting? Keser is acting as a mediator between the Ein Sof himself, or the Or Ein Sof, not even though. There is Ein Sof, there is Or Ein Sof, but Ein Sof and Or Ein Sof is too beyond and too high to emanate Sefirot. Definable and project and specified divine energies because of its Ein Sofness. So God kind of drops to a place where he can become a source for Sefirot, where he can become where from there can emanate Sefirot. So that's already the parts of Atik Yomin and Erech Anpin, which are two levels in Keser. That's considered already a design in the Or Ein Sof. Ma'arezu. So when God emanated Atik Yomin and Arech Anpin, Meha Arezu, from the pure simple light that it was initial emanated, called Tihara Ilah, the higher purity. Nikres, that's called Goluf Glifu. That's called carving a carving. Shu'inyana Hakika, that's called a carving, Ureshimu, and a tracing, B'tihara Ilah. It's like Hashem traces within the vast blueness of the sky. He outlines he outlines from the substance of the sky itself a designated area, so to speak. So there's nothing else over here. He's not like he's painting or bringing in anything other than just the pure sky. But the fact that he's giving it already an outline, a differentiation, separating it. Keser is already a drop from Or Ein Sof. It's already a descent. But there's nothing other than Or Ein Sof. The nimshul, so it's like an engravement in the stone itself. The nimshul l'chakika, and it's called an engravement l'hoira, is to indicate shebchinas hakeser, the level of keser. Hanikra atik yoimin, that's called ancient of days. The erech anpin and the long face, which are again the two levels of keser. Misached is unified betachlis. It is utterly unified ba'or Ein Sof, with the Or Ein Sof, with the Or Ein Sof, with the light of the Ein Sof. Maila, and it is way above mibchina shara es Sefirot. It is way above from the next stage, which would be 10 Sefirot, the Atzilus of the world of emanation. Because those Sefirot have already definition. And therefore they have already what? What we might say an otherness other than the substance of God. Even though by all the Sefirot we say, Iyu v'garmu chad, he is one with them. The Sefirot are his Sefirot and he's unified with them. But they're considered already garments. Garmuhu means garments. His vessels, his containers are considered a garment. He's one with them, but yet it's like a garment. Sometimes it's explained it's like a snail the snail has a shell. Now the shell, however, is part of the snail, or like a turtle it's one with it, but yet it's a shell. So the Sefirot are one with God, but yet it's already something other than the Ein Sof. But in Keser, it's just Ein Sof. So what is it? But it's still not but it's still Keser. It's a carving that he carved out in himself. However, the Sefirot are compared to the letters that are written. Like will be explained. But ancient of days, ve'erech anpin, and the level of erech anpin, they are compared to an engravement. And nevertheless, however, this engravement that we say is Keser, which is a introduction from here, God can emanate Sefirot. So the Keser is an engravement. We have to realize the engravement is not happening in God himself. The engravement is happening in the revelation of God, which is the Or emanating from him. In the Ein Sof himself, there is no change at all. There is no engravements. There's no segregation to separate some of it, so to speak. It's pure, untouched. And that's why we say that the Gol of Glifu, this design, sketching the sketch, so to speak, not sketching with something, sketching just from within himself, that is only happening b'tihare Elah, in the light of him, not in him. Only in the higher purity, which is only a emanation. It's a light. It's a radiance. That's drawn from the Or Ein Sof. But in the very substance of God, in him himself, you can't say that he is carving out within himself. As it is also known, as it is known in general, that the whole concept of tzimtzum, of contraction, which makes space for the worlds, a makampani, and the empty space, which the Arizal talks about, was the process of the divine, right? Is only in the light. It's not in the essence. It's in the light. Is explained elsewhere. Tzimtzum is not in the Ein Sof. God, the Or Ein Sof was, it says, before the worlds were created, the radiance of God didn't allow anything to exist because it was everywhere. Hashem carves a black hole in it, which means an empty space, but only in the light, not in the essence. Doesn't change. Essence is beyond the revelation. It's everywhere, unchanged. It's as if the tzimtzum never happened to the essence. But in the light, the tzimtzum the contraction, and the creates a vacuum in the light. Over there, we can also speak of this gul of galifa, of the shaping within it. The Inyan, and the idea is it is known. It is known. Now, to explain this idea, explains it better, and he says like this: it is known. We know that there's differences of opinion, the division amongst the Kabbalists. If you count Keter amongst 10 Sefirot, we know we're used to saying, as Chabad Chasidim, we are used to saying Chabad Chagas Nehim, which is what? The 10 Sefirot are counted Chachma Bina Das, which is wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, the 3 intellectual faculties. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, kindness, strength, and beauty. And then Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus, perseverance, glory, foundation, and royalty. These are the 10 Sefirot. That's our count. However, there are many other mystical writings, including books of Chassidus, you'll find a lot of times mentioned not Chabad, but Kachab. What's Kachab? Keser Chachma Bina. And when you do that count, which one do you drop? You have to drop one. It's 10 Sefirot. Which one do you drop? In other words, the Kabbalists had a tradition that there's 10 Sefirot. But how they counted it, some Kabbalists said the first order that we said earlier. Other Kabbalists say Keser Chachma Bina. Keter is counted. The crown is counted. Which one is dropped? Das. If we count it that way, Das is not counted. Fine. So this is the argument, depending on the different schools of Kabbalah. All right. As it's brought in the book of Pardes, which is the book of Rav Moshe Cordova, the great Kabbalist, Shar Gimel, in the third portal. Those who want to say that Keser is not at all counted within the 10 Sefirot. Rather, Keser is still part of the radiance of the Ein Sof. It's not Sefirot. It's not part of the Sefirot range. It's above it. It's still part of the Ein Sof. There are those who argued that it is part of the 10 Sefirot. That's what Ramak says, Rav Moshe Cordova. Comes the next stage of Kabbalah, the Arizal. The Ramak was the teacher of the Kabbalists, the one before the Ari. When the Ramak passed away, the Ari took over. So the Arizal, however, so according to the Ramak, these are two opinions, and he didn't resolve it. The Arizal does resolve it, and he reconciles both opinions. What does he say? In Eitz Chaim, in the writings of the Ari, Portal 41, Chapter 3, he says like this. The Arizal says that Keser is considered a mediator between the emanator and the emanations. Emanator is the Or Ein Sof, not the Ein Sof, the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, the ray of that's called emanator. Emanations, that's the Sefirot. They're emanations, particular emanations, kindness, discipline, whatever, judgment, victory, royalty, each one a specified emanation. In between, as a mediator between the two, is Keser. And therefore, the Arizal says, it has in it a side. Every mediator has to mediate between two parties, so it has to be able to relate to the two parties. So Keser has to be able to relate to the 10 Sefirot. But Keser also has to be able to relate to the Ein Sof.
Isn't that the job of
Malchus does the same. That's why Malchus and Keser are connected, because Malchus mediates between Atzilus and Bria. And that's why Malchus becomes Keser. Malchus is the Keser to the next world. It's the same. Malchus is in the same level of Keser. But here we're talking about Keser as it is between Atzilus and the Ein Sof. So it serves as a mediator. So therefore, the higher part of Keser can for sure not be counted as the Esser spheres, because that's receiving from the Ein Sof, and it's reflecting the Ein Sof. The lower part of Keser, which is the Erech Anpin, is already that we can begin to say that it has a relationship to the 10 Sefirot. And maybe it can even be counted with the Esser spheres. So the Chitzonius of Keser, the external part of Keser, which is the Erech Anpin, perhaps could be counted with the Sefirot. The Pnimius of Keser, with Atik Yomen, is not countable in the spheres. But he's soon going to explain, so what is that? It's like the engraved letters that are letters, but yet they're the stone. So they're, as we're going to see. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I was always under the understanding that there was the Maichin and there was the Midah.
Yeah.
So Keser, we know, is above Maichin.
That's right.
So how are you putting it in the same category of Maichin? Are you putting it in Keser?
We're not putting it in Moichin. We're putting it in as the Mamutza between the Ein Sof and the Moichin. As the interface that allows the Moichin even to emerge.
And how do you rectify Igboy that?
Okay, he doesn't talk about that right now in this mimer, but we'll leave that. Okay, the Arizal says like this: it's the mediator. And therefore it has within itself from the tail end of the Ein Sof, that's the Atik Yomen element, the Ancient of Days. And that's why we call it ancient. Ancient because only God is ancient, because the Ein Sof always was. The emanations are new. When he decided to create, he emanated. So so since we're calling it ancient, means ancient over here means always was. So therefore we have to say if Keser is called ancient, means that in Keser has to be something left over of pure Ein Sof, on that we can call it ancient. Atik also means removed of, separated from. A netak, which means it's removed from days. What's days? Days are Sefirot. Particular, it has no relationship to the Sefirot. It is still it's still associating with pure Ein Sof. Now, this level itself is what emanates the next level of Keser. As P'chinas HaBeisha boy, the lower level of Keser. What's the lower level of Keser? Shu shoyresh kol yud sfiros. It's the source of the 10. It's not yet Sefirot. But the lower level of Keser becomes the source of Sfiros. What does that mean? As explained in Chassidus, it's the will that there should be Sefirot. So even when you want something, you're already getting closer to it by just wanting it. Because we understand something that I might be, 25 minutes away from the ice cream store. Okay. As I sat down here tonight, and as I told a second ago, I have absolutely no connection to the ice cream store. I wasn't thinking about ice cream. There's nothing no entity inside of me that has anything to do with ice cream. I'm even Fleischiks now, so I couldn't even have ice cream if I wanted. I mean, maybe a power of ice cream, but it's like I'm totally not in there. So no relationship to it, completely disconnected from it. But when I'm starting to talk about ice cream now, maybe I'm thinking it would be nice to have, So by wanting it, I'm already closer to it. Just by wanting it. It's already establishing, it's bringing me closer to that reality. Now, does that mean that I have a cart to get there? Does it mean that the ice cream store is still open? Does it mean that Uber Eats is still available? Does it mean that I'm going to get connection on my phone, that it's going to be working, the app? Does it mean that maybe my credit card that I'm going to order is going to be declined? There are so many variables that can happen, and it will never happen in ice cream. And there's no ice cream yet at all, but there is already a connection to it. So once the Eibishter emanated Sefirot, he already emanated vanilla ice cream, chocolate. Chesed is vanilla, chocolate is Gevura, strawberry is Teferes, pistachio, whatever, I don't know. But I mean, all the flavored ice creams, when there are Sefirot already, those ice creams exist. When there is Erech Anpin, there is a will for these things, so there's already a connection. There isn't even the beginning of ice cream yet, but there is already a will that it should be. That's already a connection. So the Or Ein Sof had dropped itself already lower to be able to want something specific, although the want is only pure want, meaning it's not yet it. But Atik Yomen is even before the will. There is no will yet. It's just pure, the potential of the Or Ein Sof to be anything. It's the potential of the Or Ein Sof to be anything. It's the potential to want, but there's no want. So you see the thing of that. So Shoirish Kala Yud Sfiris, the lower part of Keser is already the source of the 10 spheres. Hanetzalim are emanations. And therefore, B'Pchenas Helem V'Dakas Gadol, because it can walk, because in Keser, it wants already Sefirot, we can already detect the Sefirot in there in a very, 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 very subtle way. The fact that he wants it already is leaving room for their actual existence, although they don't exist yet. So in that sense, we can say the Sefirot exist already in the external part of Keser, on the most abstract way, but they're in a very hidden way, but they're there already. And that's why it's called long face. It's long because it's still Ein Sof. It's not yet Sefirot. It's a face because it has already the features, because he wants the features. So in a subtle way, those features are there already. But these two levels, Atik Yomin and Erech Anpin, Yachat together, Nikra Keser. They're called the crown. And this acts as the mamutza, the mediator between the Or Ein Sof and the actual creations. So from here we see the B'chinas HaKeser, that the crown, it's really above. Oh, now, since it has already the 10 Sefirot in a very subtle way, we can technically already begin calling Keser one of the Sefirot. That's the reason of those Mekubalim that count Keser amongst the Sefirot, because they're referring to the external part of Keser, which the external part of Keser has already the will for the Sefirot. So in the subtle, hidden state, it's already Sephirotic, if you might say. The Mekubalim that say that Keser is still Ein Sof and no Shaykhs is because they're looking at Keser from the inside of Keser, from the higher side of Keser, where it's still a extension, so to speak, of the Or Ein Sof. So, and there is no possibility even for Sefirot yet. It's a possibility to want Sefirot, but there's no possibility for actual Sefirot. So that is Or Ein Sof. So therefore, it's not counted amongst the Sefirot. That's the Arizal's. That's the Ariz reconciliation. But from here, the Alter Rebbe says, from here we can see the B'chinas HaKeser u'lamayla makalas Sefirot, that the Keser is above the 10 Sefirot. Sha'afil B'chinas Tachtoina Shabai, even the lower level of Keser, hu rak shoirish hanetzal, even the lower level is not, it doesn't have the emanations yet. It's the root of the emanations. B'dakis gadol, in a very, very we can hardly say it's a root for them. It's as much as I can say that I'm already having the fact that I want a mix. I like the chocolate and the vanilla together on the swirl. Okay, if you ever, coffee also not bad. I don't know. Today they have every kind of fancy flavor, but I haven't been eating ice cream a lot, so I can't tell you all the fancy. I remember as the simple flavor. I haven't yet developed sophisticated taste buds for ice cream. But in any case, the fact that I am talking about it right now, in which way is there ice cream here? There's no ice cream. But there's more ice cream now here than it was before I even started talking, right? And in a sense, it's a little bit of a source because someone who's listening to the class might decide to show up here with a tub of ice cream because I'm talking about it, right? So which means on some hidden level, there was already ice cream here. Before there was only Orin Sof here and Keser, and now there's ice cream in the mix here. Is it here? Can you argue that it's here? Or can you argue it's not here? That's the question. And I guess the argument can be made that it's both. It's here because there's a source for it already, but in a very, very concealed dakas gadol, it's not here because all we have is a want for it. It's above the substance of the Sefirot of Atzilus, of the world of Atzilus, because they're already the different flavors of the ice cream. They already are the entity. It's similar to the concept of the concealed 10 spheros. In early books of Kabbalah, I'm not sure if in Sefer Yetzirah, in the Book of Formation, but in the early books of, Haniskar B'Lashon HaGaonim, in the writings of the Gaonim, they speak of 10 sefirot that are still hidden in potential. So that's similar to what we're talking about in Keser, the Sefirot. Ubelashon Arizal, and in the words of the Ari, who inyan eser Sefirot ta'atik u'de'erech anpin. In the Ari, it's the 10, in the terminology of the Arizal, it would be the 10 Sefirot of Atik, of the innermost of Keser, u'de'erech anpin, and the 10 Sefirot of Erech Anpin. Obviously, the 10 Sefirot of Erech Anpin are much more pronounced than the 10 Sefirot of Atik Yomen, where there can you find the ice cream? Put it this way. Let's go. When I walked into the class today, and we didn't start talking about ice cream, we didn't even bring up a will or a discussion about it. But there was a potential for it. What's the proof that there was a potential for it? Because it actually actualized. We started speaking about it, and ice cream came up on the air. And if I was from a world where the ice cream doesn't exist at all, then I wouldn't even be a potential for me to even think about that. Right? There's a lot of things that I'm not talking about right now. And there's all an infinite amount of realities that we're not talking about now. Especially those things that God never created, that could have been created. So for that, there isn't even a potential, at least not in my existence, because if it wasn't even created, it's not even a possibility for me to think about it, because it doesn't even exist in the impossibility. So in Atik Yomin, at least there is a possibility you should want, but in Erech Anpin, there's actually a desire. So the difference would be as follows. The ice cream that existed before we even started talking about it, before I even thought about it. I didn't plan this when I was preparing the shir because I only prepared last week. Today I was busy. So I didn't think about this at all. So the ice cream that was there was like, I'm giving just a weird example, would be like the level of the Sefirot in Atik Yomin. It's a possibility, but it's not there. Once we started talking about it and there's perhaps a will for it, then what? That's the way the Sefirot exists in Erech. Obviously, I'm giving a very coarse example, but you get the idea. I'm just trying to find the metaphor. So that's already that's so much more, it exists so much more once we started talking about it than before. So that would be like an Erech, but is there ice cream here? Is there even a beginning of ice cream? No. But yet, yeah. Because if ice cream is going to happen tonight, it's because we started talking about it, or else it sure wouldn't happen. Now that we're talking. And then there's actually, if we go out and get ice cream, and we actually have it, that's a whole different, that's coming into real reality. So even if if I actually took out Uber Eats, or what's it called again, some other app, I don't know what else they use for food delivery. No, for ice cream? Yeah, maybe. No, one of these mamish restaurant deliveries. I forgot what they Grubhub. It's too Grub. whatever these things are that you order food from. If I started ordering it and selecting a flavor, and then they sent out to the delivery guy, so then even though I don't have the actual ice cream, but the ice cream is here already. Because now it's just a matter of 15 minutes of the guy actually going to the store, bringing it in. I don't know why I said, because when I was driving down this week, I saw an advertisement saying that you can order pizza in 15 minutes, you'll have it. No, it wasn't. It was cannabis. I noticed a sign saying about 15 minutes. That's all it takes from when you order it till it's at your door. So I caught my attention. So once I'm doing it already, I'm already in the process of Sefirot. Then it's already really becoming real. Now, when is it going to be in the level of Malchus? When the ice cream is actually shows up on the table, then it's formulated, it's completed, it's a full, it's a real tangible ice cream. So you see how it's evolving. But in the levels of Keter, there's just a will and even pre-will and Atik Yomim. Now, the explanation of this matter will be understood by way of analogy from, not to understand this deeper, from what the sages say. Regarding Rabbi Akiva, this is a story I told on Shabbos. It's a bittersweet story. Moshe Rabbeinu asked God. The Talmud says a fascinating story about Rabbi Akiva. I'll do it briefly. Moshe Rabbeinu was, when Moshe came to take the Torah, he went up to heaven and he saw God putting the final touches to the Torah. God was writing, putting crowns on the letters. And Moshe had an appointment to pick up the Torah at 3:37. Meanwhile, it was 3:30, it wasn't finished yet. So Moshe was hanging around there and he was getting he's supposed to pick it up. So he said, God, God said, I'm finishing up. I said, Moshe, what are you doing? He said, I'm putting crowns. Moshe said, I think it's good as it is. I think it needs these crowns. Obviously, Moshe understood that there's some very, very deep secrets here, but he knew that no one can understand those secrets. He says, we're basically, for who are you writing that? For who is the Torah not good yet that you need to add this extra sprinkles on it? Talk about ice cream. Toppings. These are the toppings on the Torah. Who needs that? It's delicious as it is. So God said, and many generations from now, there'll be a fellow who's going to read the Torah and he's going to eat the toppings as well. He's going to teach mounds and mounds of laws and ideas from all these different crowns. His name will be, and so Moshe said, who is he? He said, Rabbi Akiva is his name. So Moshe said, can I see him? So God said, turn around. Moshe turns around and he travels in time. He travels forward in time. He's literally at the time of after the Second Temple era. So he's over 1,000 years later. He's suddenly and he's inside the study hall where Rabbi Akiva is teaching 24,000 students. Moshe looked for a seat. Looks like one of the guys went to the bathroom or something, or whatever. On the 8th row, the Talmud says. It's great. Just the story is so good. Everything is so juicy if you think about the little detail. So Moshe goes and sits down on the seat on the 8th row, and he's sitting amongst the students. They have no idea they're sitting next to Moshe. I wonder who he was sitting next to. And God is, and Rabbi Akiva is teaching. And Moshe is trying to understand the conversation, and he cannot understand the Torah discussion. He feels lost. He feels ashamed. He feels so small that he feels like the brilliant discussions that were going on were above his head. Isn't that amazing? So he's feeling down. But suddenly one of the students asked a question to Rabbi Akiva, and how do you know this? From where did you derive this teaching? Because they were questioning, he taught a teaching. So Rabbi Akiva said, for this we actually don't have a source that we can derive it. This is a tradition that was handed down to Moshe at Sinai. So when Moshe heard that, it calmed him down. So then Moshe pops out, goes out of his seat, turns back around, and is back in front of God, and he's back 1,000 years earlier, and he says to God, wow. So he says to Hashem, if you have someone like Rabbi Akiva, why are you giving the Torah through me? Why not wait for Rabbi Akiva or pluck him from further out of time, bring him now, and you'll give the Torah through a genius like Rabbi Akiva. So God says to Moshe, this is, don't question this. So it arose in my thought. So it appeared in my thought. This is the way it has to be. Okay, Moshe says no questions. Fine. So then Moshe asks God, okay, you showed me his Torah of this. Moshe couldn't get over Rabbi Akiva. He said, you showed me his Torah. Now show me his reward. I want to see the reward of someone like him. So God said, turn around. So Moshe turns around. Again, he travels in time. And he sees the most horrific thing any human being would ever see. There's two opinions. One opinion is he saw them combing Rabbi Akiva's flesh with metal combs. Literally, he was on a rack. And they were combing his flesh, the Romans, torturing him to death. Or another opinion in the Talmud is that they saw the Romans were so vicious. Not only did they torture the sage to death, but they took his flesh and they sold it in the butcher shop, in the meat market. Human flesh they were selling of the sage in order to denigrate the Jewish people, to shame them, to break them. So Moshe turns around to God and he says, are you kidding with me? This is the reward of your greatest. And God says to Moshe, shtok. God says to Moshe, shtok, be quiet. Kach ola b'machshava, so arose in my thought. That's the story. You're not going to understand everything. So the Alter Rebbe now wants to know what's this. What does this mean? It so arose in my thought. What's with this idea? He's going to explain what the level of Keter is, how beyond it is. How okay? And the tshuva was, and the answer was, shtoik, be quiet, kach ola b'machshava, so arose in my thoughts. Piddish, what does that mean? Ki mebchinas chachmi lo ha'isasagis Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was plugged in to the highest level of divine comprehension. Moshe's soul emanated from the divine attribute of wisdom. That's why Moshe can conceive anything that was developing or anything that was emanating from Hashem's brain, from God's revealed mind, from God's intelligence. For us, in order for us to experience any kind of intelligence, divine intelligence, it has to be filtered, I don't know how many times, billions and billions and billions of times until our peep-squeak minds can understand even the tiniest something, a crumb of it. Moshe, his mind, his brain, his soul was plugged into the supernal wisdom. So anything that was already in the realm of God's revealed logic, Moshe can understand. When Moshe couldn't understand this, Moshe was challenging God. I don't get this. And God's answer was, this is not in my revealed logic. Because if it would be in my revealed logic, it would make sense to you. This is a step, this is on an inner level where my energy and my life force is infinitely higher than my own logic, higher than the logic. And that's where this is wanted. On that level, this doesn't make sense. This is right. On a level that is infinitely beyond any comprehension, any logic. And that's the meaning. Allah, it rose b'machshava, in thought. This thought is beyond chachmi Allah, beyond the supernal wisdom. Let's see. Now, why did Moshe have to be plugged in to divine wisdom? We don't say that about anybody else. Mashiach, of course. But we say that about Moshe, that he was plugged into God's brain, into Chachmi Allah, into the supernal wisdom. Why? Because Moshe had to bring the Torah to us. The Torah is the divine wisdom. So that's where the written Torah comes from. From the droppings and the hind part, the Chachmi Allah, the supernal wisdom. Yes, the Torah, the written Torah, comes from the back of the supernal Chachma. That means but yet from that level. And based on this Chachma, on this discipline, on this logic, Lo nisyashiv zeh inyan. This idea didn't make any sense. And that's why Moshe is crying. The chizir Torah, is this Torah vizu schar, and this is its reward? This makes no sense to me, God. This is completely contradictory to everything I understand about you. Your kindness and your goodness. This is the opposite of any kind of kindness. This is cruel. This is horrific. This is blasphemy to you, God. God answers Moshe, so arose in my thought. What does that mean? God is not saying this is beyond intelligence, because then he wouldn't say it arose in thought. Thought is already a level of intelligence. He said this is not from the revealed intelligence, this is from the concealed intelligence. What does that mean? Let's stop for a minute in ourselves. In our own minds, whenever we're thinking something, there is the revealed intelligence. In other words, what our logic dictates, what our mind comprehends, what we understand, the thoughts, the ideas that we have full expression, full revelation in. But then there is what? Then there is, we know where every piece of knowledge or logic comes from. We know that it's dropping out of somewhere, which means we all realize we have a hidden intellect machine, so to speak. We have a hidden factory, a hidden that is above our consciousness. It's almost like a some kind of a fountain of intelligence. It's the fountain of intelligence that produces ideas. Every innovation, every creative thought, every creative concept that is new, every epiphany, a new idea that emerged, it's been produced somewhere, but the place of that production, we don't know. That means that there is a power of intelligence that's embedded in the soul itself, higher than the expressed energy of the soul, which is our consciousness and our pre-consciousness. In the potential of the mind, if we might call it. The potential of the conscious mind. It's a potential for intelligence, for revealed intelligence, but it's the super intelligence. It's the essential intelligence prior to its revelation. So just like it is in the human experience, so it is in the divine realm as well. There's the revealed divine intelligence where Moshe was plugged in, and every concept that was being revealed to God was being shared to Moshe. That's the revelation of Torah. And then there is the pre-revealed power to produce ideas. In other words, the wisdom, the chachma that is in Keter. That's what we said before. It's not yet chachma, it's the potential for chachma. The power of chachma as it is in the potential. So God is saying this particular event that you're watching, happening, which doesn't make any sense from you, didn't drop into, it's too intense for the mind to handle it. For any mind, even the divine revealed mind to handle it. I'm operating from a place higher than even God's revealed intelligence. And that's close to you. And therefore be silent, because you can't know that. So don't talk about it. Don't try to. This comes from the hidden chachma. And that's the reason why it says V'zeu Lashon Allah. It says Allah. It's elevated in thought. It's from a more elevated level of chachma, which is elevated higher than revealed chachma. It's not just above. It's above michachma ilah, from the supernal wisdom anikra Torah shebeksav, which is called the written Torah. Elon nimshach, it's drawn mechachma stima, from the considered. If I'm not afraid, I am afraid, but I'll still say this because I'm just now. We said Rabbi Akiva, when he studied Torah, was he only reading the letters? Rabbi Akiva was reading the crowns on the letters, which means Rabbi Akiva was conceiving the Torah deeper than the revealed intelligence, but in the pre-intelligence. Because Rabbi Akiva was connecting to that place, God was also communicating with Rabbi Akiva from that higher place. And that's why we know when Rabbi Akiva was being ripped to death, he was in ecstasy. Rabbi Akiva, his students were saying to him, "What are you, crazy?" He was laughing. He was in a state of, you can see his face was radiating with joy. And they asked him, "What are you doing?" And he said, "All my life I've been waiting for a moment to completely, die for the sanctification of God's name, to love God with all your being." Does that make logically sense to anybody? Rabbi Akiva was operating in a complete different wavelength, because Rabbi Akiva was plugging into a level that's higher than intelligence, and God was communicating with him also from that level. So anybody who's looking at it, observing it from the level of revealed intelligence, it doesn't make any sense. It's a complete different frequency. So to us, it's horror, and to Rabbi Akiva, it wasn't. He was in the deepest connection to God. But God says to Moshe, who's on the more revealed level, which he needed to be, because he needed to bring us the revealed Torah. He needed to bring us the Torah down, that this is beyond your limits. This is above from the entire comprehension, which comes from the wisdom, from the level of Chachma Vatzilus. And by way of analogy, just like by a person, just like in a person, there is the revealed intelligence and there is the power of intelligence. We all understand, no matter who the person is, a person could be, let's take Albert Einstein, a genius who used his brain so much. Like, he really wasn't lazy. He really thought deeply into things, and therefore came up with brilliant, like mind-blowing, ideas that advanced humanity so much, right? But would we argue when we would say that what Einstein conceived and understood was that his full potential of his soul's mind, or his soul's ability to produce? No, put it this way. Had Einstein merited to live an extra 1,000 years, he probably would have pumped out of that very same soul brain who knows what kind of concepts, endlessly more and deeper than what he gave us. That means that in the pre-intelligence, in its potential, you can't compare the revealed intelligence to the pre-intelligence that can produce, because that has so much more than what is actually produced. That's called, there is the Giloy HaSeichel, there's the revelation of the mind, and there is the Koach HaSeichel, the power of the mind. So the hidden Chachma is the power of God's intelligence before it comes to revelation. And that is above the intelligence that is comprehended and understood. And just like when a person deepens his mind in some kind of an idea, there's like, every time you're thinking deeply into something because you're perplexed, you feel like, you came to a dead end, you're like trying to figure this out, you're thinking deeply, and then what are you doing? You're trying to like shake that pre-intellect to produce a new idea. Where is this new svara? The svara chadasha. Svara chadasha means a new concept. Where is it coming? It's coming from the power of the intelligence that is beyond the comprehended understanding. And from the understanding that you had early. Now here's the thing. A lot of times you have situations where you're first, you're learning something and you understood whatever it is that you're studying superficially. Or sometimes we have certain knowledge and understanding about certain aspects in life. And we understand life or understand certain, whatever it is about life and about whatever it is that we care about. We understand it in a certain way. And then we achieve in a breakthrough. So the breakthrough that suddenly is so like, what does it do? It illuminates everything you've known before. Sometimes it changes what you know before. Sometimes it's not changing. Sometimes it doesn't negate what you know before. But everything you've ever known is now so much richer and deeper and like more powerful. So it's almost like whatever you knew before, which was your luminance, has now turned into a vessel that becomes the body for something so much higher and deeper. So initially, like let's say if you're a mathematician, and you have your understanding of math at a certain age, when you're 25, when you're 30, and then when you're 40, you're studying math, and then you have a whole new breakthrough in it. So what was once your illumination is now the vessel and the container for a much higher and richer and deeper understanding of the subject matter. And that becomes the soul, that becomes illumination. So you see that the level of intelligence, which is new, coming from the pre-intelligent, even what is emanating from it, is far more powerful than what you had earlier, especially for people who live in the world of the mind. And they're never satisfied. They always want to understand anything that they have. They always realize there's a deeper depth, and they try to know it deeper. It's a certain humility of the mind to have that, not to think I know it all, but to always go deeper and deeper. That's a real. So what you have now is only a vessel to receive this new illumination, which comes suddenly. We all know the way a new idea emerges is that it might take time to come to something new. It might take time. The time is only concentration. The time is concentration, frustration. That's the time. The time takes to negate, to ask questions, to negate this explanation, that explanation, and to reach this point of deep frustration. But the actual breakthrough, when it flashes, is a second. And boom, suddenly it's like, wow. It changes. It could be that the next 15 years of your research is changed forever with that one flash. I'm thinking about Mashiach's coming is that way. It's like we're waiting and working and working and working. And we're thinking, okay, so it's going to come. No. When it's going to come, when it's going to reveal itself, it's going to be boom. And everything we've done is like the concentration and the negation that's waiting for that moment of mind-blowing divine revelation. That's going to happen any second. So it comes, but where is it? Why is it so fantastic? Because you've opened up the door to the pre-intellect to produce something from above the status quo of your mind. Sometimes we sit with the status quo for our mind for a long time in our life and we're satisfied. But if something in our life is not working, whether it's in our profession, whether companies or medicine or whatever it is, and you're kind of satisfied with what you've achieved. But then there's a competition opening up and they're accelerating this. So now you realize that you can't just continue what you're doing. You need to go much deeper. You need to produce something much further or more advanced. It forces everybody back to the table, makes everybody frustrated and everybody until you can keep up because someone that it's whatever whatever it could be an external cause, it could be an internal drive, whatever it is, something that's causing you to take it to a whole new level. Based on this, we'll also understand what does it mean it has arisen in thought. Pirish. The thought, regular level of God's thought, is Chachma of Atzilus. That's already the intelligence of the cosmos. That's what God already had emanated. That is the idea behind everything that exists. And when we say everything exists, we mean the physical world, but also all the spiritual world that precede, and all the infinite, all everything. It's all it's all based on that intelligence that God had emanated, so to speak, his ideas. But what happens when God brainstorms? From the infinite possibility beyond into it. Now, so there is that revealed idea, revealed intelligence, and into that, and just like we said earlier, it's not like sometimes you have a new idea that you have to dismiss everything you've known before. But sometimes it's not that. It's enriching and deepening everything you know, but it's taking it to a whole new level. That means that into the revealed understanding comes a new shot, a new revelation much higher. And into the revealed mind comes a new revelation from Chachma Stima, from the concealed Chachma, that it should be so be'inyan Rabbi Akiva. In other words, although what happened to Rabbi Akiva happened in this world, if it happened in this world, it had to somehow be that it entered into the consciousness, or it entered into the design. Let's put it this way. It entered into the design of the cosmos. But it was like a new epiphany that just dropped in. And it was too bright for Moshe yet to conceive. Because it's coming from beyond. But based on that, so he's asking a question. If machshava, he's asking now a question. If the level called thought is the current intelligence, it's called thought. And now what God is saying is, this is a new take on life. In other words, the whole design of the cosmos is now changing with my whole new thought. I'm dropping in a bomb from beyond into the thing. So then it should have not said Allah b'machshava. It arose. It should have said Yarad b'machshava, because a higher light that's above is now descending into the cosmos. It's descending into the revealed intelligence from, why does it say Allah? It rose. It should say Yarad, because the pre-intelligence, when it reveals itself into the intelligence, it's descending. It's not ascending. Because the concealed intelligence is above Chachma of Atzilus. And from the supreme Chachma, from the potential wisdom, it's falling into and coming down into the conceived wisdom. But rather, what he's saying is like this. So therefore, we're reading it wrong. It's not that kach ola b'machshava. I have a new revealed concept. Because we are assuming that the word machshava means revealed thought. And if it would mean kach ola b'machshava, I have a new idea now. And you don't understand it yet, Moshe, because it's new. Maybe one day you'll understand it. That's not what it means. Machshava stima really means what? See, what he's saying is that even the concealed seichel, the concealed intelligence, is also called machshava, is also called thought. So kach ola b'machshava doesn't mean it now entered into the lower machshava, into the world of revealed understanding. No, it's lodged This energy that's happening to Rabbi Akiva is lodged in where? It's etched where? In my concealed intelligence. And over there, it emerges. Meaning it didn't drop into the revealed intelligence. Unlike like we said earlier. It remained, and I'm operating with Rabbi Akiva from my pre-intelligence, not from the revealed intelligence. And therefore, since it didn't drop into the revealed intelligence, it's not explorable. It's not knowable. You can't ask questions on this. You can't look for an explanation. It arose, that's why it says Allah. But what do we see from here? Muvah is understood from here. How the hidden chachma, the hidden wisdom, which is the source of the revealed chachma, when it is in keser, we see from here if Moshe could have no understanding at all, to the point that God tells him silence, don't even explore, don't even ask, don't even think, don't even go there. We see from here that the logic over here, the level of divine is you can't, it's not from the same, although we call it intelligence, it's not even in the same family, so to speak, of revealed intelligence. It is so infinite, so incomprehensible, so unknowable.
It seems that the author is basically saying the same thing with Keser. He's now applying it to Chachma, saying we don't need to.
No. He's saying Chachma as it is in Keser. Just like he said earlier that Keser has all the Sefirot. But how does Keser have all the Sefirot? In a very benign, it's as if it's not there. It's in such a concealed state. So he's showing you the difference between Chachma when Chachma is Chachma and when Chachma is in Keser, and they are light years away. They're light years away. That's how much Keser is above. Since this pre-level of Chachma is Chachma that is in Keser, it's the Chachma as it's still in the infinite. It's not at all. So even Moshe Rabbeinu was told, what the Alter Rebbe is trying to prove is that if there would be some kind of a, similarity between the Chachma, between the Sefirot of Atzilus and the Sefirot in Keser, you wouldn't tell Moshe, be quiet. You would say to him, you don't know, you don't understand today, you'll understand tomorrow. You can search, it might take you 1 billion years, but you'll get it. If God says to him, shtoik, be silent, don't even go there, means because what we're dealing with is a gap that has, why? Even though he's the master of all divine, Moshe is the one person who's God's ultimate student who can receive all of God's intelligence, but that's revealed intelligence. And this is from the pre-intellect, from the level of Chachma as it is still one with the soul itself, and on that level you have no. It's not the same chachma. It's as if it's a complete different, what do you call it? It's like a complete different beast, animal. Like it's something else completely. Yet it's a source for it, but yet it's something. It's on a whole different level. To the point that it's not at all understood. Canal b'shayla zutara to Moshe, it was the most upsetting thing when he asked, "This is the Torah and this is the reward." To the point that God can't even begin to explain it to him. Rak shtoik, just silent. It's as if there is no reason. It doesn't mean there isn't a reason. There isn't a reason. It's not within the realm of revealed intelligence. The reason that there is to this, that is in the concealed intelligence, it is above from it being grasped even in the divine world of Atzilus. Which where Moshe Rabbeinu would understand things. In the level of Atzilus, this is way above it. So just like we were looking at the difference between Chachma that is revealed and Chachma that is in Keser. So now we can look at the general realm of Keser. Keser in general, which is, we said before, is a mediator between God himself and the Sefirot. It's still how much it is beyond, and it's how Ein Sof it is, and how it's beyond the colors of Atzilus, the colors of the spheres, the definitions of the spheres. Even the lower part of Keser, that's considered already a root and a source for Atzilus, it is above, Mimuhus es spheres Atzilus, from the substance of the 10 spheres of Atzilus, because the Ein Sof is still shining in Keser, and therefore it's still infinite. And this is the level of Atik Yomin, which is the radiance of the Ein Sof. And from it comes the external part of Keser, Shoirish Liyut Spheres Atzilus, which is the root of the 10 spheres of Atzilus. And this is the level of Erech Anpin. And that's why it is compared lachakika, to an engravement. And that's why we use, now he's going back to engraving. That's why it's called engraving. Because it's as if there's nothing else. It's just like when you engrave the letters. What do you have? You have the pure, simple stone that is pure, simple. And once you're engraving it, it has design, but it's one with the stone. There's nothing there other than that. Here it's also the Ein Sof. Even though we can speak in Keser already, we can detect these 10 Sefirot, but it's really nothing more than the Ein Sof. Therefore, it's still Ein Sof. It's still the substance of the Ein Sof, so it's still Ein Sof. Versus the Sefirot, they're not really Ein Sof. There is, the Ein Sof encloses himself in them, but they're not anymore Ein Sof itself. They're like already a garment to the Ein Sof. Yeah, no, those 10 spheres are real spheres. That's already spheres. Emanations, limitations. Yeah. No, he's not. He was explaining, but he explained the reason why there is a school of thought in Kabbalah to include Keser, because there is a shoresh to the spheres. But it's the shoresh, meaning to say, just like the letters inside the stone are there is letters there as opposed to pre-letters. But the fact that the letters are just engraved in the stone in this case is the Ein Sof, is God himself. So once you have real letters, that's real letters. But engraved letters, it's really ain't Ein Sof. So that's before the engravement. The same substance that was before you engraved is existing after engraved. The coming into being of Keser on both levels, the Ancient of Days and the Long Phase. They're still included in the worlds of the Ein Sof. The coming into being of the 10 Sefirot of Atzilus, Chachma, where you have real Chachma, wisdom, Chesed and kindness, the Orein Sof lav mikol midas iu klal. Since the Orein Sof doesn't have any of these colors and any of these attributes of wisdom and so forth. For Chachma Allah, and therefore the supernal Chachma is considered to God like a physical creation. Like it says, we learned so many times, Kasiya Gufnis, it's like a physical creation. Nachsheves Etzlo Yisbarach, it's considered by God. That's already considered La'oisias Aksav. Even though God is enclothing himself in them, but he's like enclothing himself like the parchment enclothes itself in the ink. It's two separate things. The parchment is one thing, the ink is another thing. So in this case, God would be the parchment, but the Sefirot, the vessels of the Sefirot, is already something. It's like a creation. It's like God created something from nothing and then garbs himself in it and becomes one with it. But it's already something it's already an entity, as opposed to Keser, which is nothing other than the Ein Sof. Sha'adiyoyu davar zar. When you have letters written, the ink is already something foreign. Rakshanes achadem aklav, it becomes unified with the parchment. Which isn't the case of Keser, these two levels. They're part of the Ein Sof. Canal b'shem Arizal, like we said in the name of the Holy Ari. It's a mediator. That's why it's not compared to the letters of writing, but rather it's compared to an engravement. Now, even though even Keser is not of the same level of the essence of the light prior to God carving that carving, because the Or Ein Sof, before it drops into the realm of Keser, which is already considered a carving, Shu Pashat Adayim Betachlis, over there it's simple, it's utterly simple, like a plain vast blue sky. But yet it's like engraving in a stone, which before you engraved, it was smooth. Now that you're engraving, you have already a shape, but the shape and the stone are one. Because when you're making a roshem means you're scratching, you're making a little dent, or you're carving on a Even Tov, on a precious gem, and you can already see inscriptions. It's not like the stone was when it was just it's pure raw stone. But it's not. But on the other hand, there's nothing else there but the stone. Like would be the case with the ink. The 10 spheres that are in the supernal crown, his chalkusam b'pchinas hakeser, they're the differentiation as they become differentiated while they're in Keser, which means on the level of Keser, niris v'niglas liyesh v'davar klal. It's not apparent as something, as an entity, as a substance, something other ma'atzmis or Ein Sof. It's God Himself being this or being that. There's nothing here other than Him. He's not emanating or creating something. It is Him. Keser still is still a, so to speak, the tail end of the Or Ein Sof. It would be by way of analogy, like a engravement, like a tracing on it, and it's still completely unified. In the essence of the Or Ein Sof. Just like we find in the way of the analogy, that when you have an intellectual idea, the idea is an idea that is not your soul. You produced an idea. The idea is an idea. But the power of your intelligence, the subconscious power of the intelligence, is not differentiated from the power that you have in your soul to intellectualize. That's not separated than your soul. That's just we know the fact that it produces intelligence, that it's a power for intelligence. But what is it other than the soul? But once you have already intellectual ideas, these are ideas. You can write them in a book. They can separate from the person. Someone else can even steal your ideas. That's how much separatable they are, because they become something. But while the koach is still a koach, it's not becoming anything. The power of the intelligence is unified with the soul. Even though the soul itself, you can't say on the soul that the soul is a power of intelligence. The soul itself is beyond the power of intelligence. But the power of intelligence in the soul is nothing other than the soul. So and that's why it's like the power of intelligence is like an engraved letter in the soul. The soul has certain engravements What's one of its engravements? The power to intellectualize. It has other powers. It has the power to feel, the power of emotion. That's a different power. So these are like different carvings in the soul itself. But you don't have anything but the soul. But yet the pure naked soul, the pure essence of the soul doesn't have any of these carvings. Yet when these powers are powers that are nothing other than the soul itself. And this is the meaning of Bereisho Menusa de Malka, in the beginning of the will of the king, Gol of Galifa, he traced the trace within him, Piddish. When it arose the will in God, to emanate 10 Sefirot, the first thing that he did was Gol of Galifu. The first thing that he did was he traced these letters, Hu al derech mashal. This is by way of analogy. His havos b'chinas chakika. In the beginning, take care. Hashem engraved within himself, ba'oira pashut, in the simple life, lachkoik, to engrave, sharshei esasfiros, the root of the 10 attributes. Hashem brought into being this keser, which is nothing other than himself in a more definitive state. Canal. It's still higher than the letters of writing. Shem Eses Sfiras Atzilus, which they're considered already the 10 Sefirot of Atzilus, is already a substance other than God. 10 Sfiras. Wisdom is already wisdom. Kindness is already kindness. It's not Ein Sof. The Teichen Inyan and the explanation and the summary of the idea, the Ba'atzilus yesh b'chinas kelim. In Atzilus there are vessels. Mamish la'oiros de yotziris. There are real containers. There is energy in containers. In Keser, there's no containers. It's just energy. Because it's carved from the Ein Sof. That's what he's saying. There's no kelim. That's why it's compared to the written letters from Diyoy, from ink, al gabe klaf lavan, on a white parchment. So the white parchment is the energy, and the black ink is a container. Shadiyoyu mashal kelim. The ink is a mashal, is a metaphor for the vessels. They are not from the substance of the simple light, because the ink is not produced by it's not like you talk to a paper and the paper produces the ink. It doesn't emanate the ink from the paper. The ink is added on from the outside. So the same would be by God, that he brings something in that's not him, and he expresses himself in it. Obviously, he's the only producer of that ink, but still he produces. It's almost like he creates a creation and then makes that creation part of him. Which isn't the case in the levels of Keter, which is in the Ancient of Days and in the level of Arach Anpin, which is a long face. Hagam sheyesh behem shoirish lekelim the Yutzviris, even though there's already a root for the vessels of the 10 Sfiros. Eina kelim nikarim, these vessels on that level, they're not at all recognizable. And then, so therefore, there's no vessels, there's no containers there at all revealed. And lebehelim gadol, it's there. Just like we said earlier when we spoke, it's a will for the vessels, but it's not yet vessels. So therefore, it's very, very concealed. And therefore, it's compared to the letters that are engraved. There's nothing foreign, kidiyoi, like the ink. However, notwithstanding the loftiness of Keser, since we said earlier it still is already a shape, whether it's a carving in the Ein Sof, we can't say that about the Ein Sof. We can only say that about the light that's emanating from the Ein Sof. Because in God himself, we can't even say that. This carving is only in the supernal illumination. Which is a ray, that is drawn from Hashem's simple light. This radiance that comes, so again, going back, first there is the Ein Sof himself, that is an essence. It's not at all revealed even. Then there's a projection of that Ein Sof. That's revealing the parchment. That's revealing the stone. That's the Ein Sof. That's the Or Ein Sof, in which the carving is going to take place. It's going to take place in the light. And in it is engraved the Keser, the 10 Sefirot of Keser. But in the Or Ein Sof himself, in the infinite one himself, over there you can't even speak of a carving and a tracing. Chas v'shalom, God forbid. Now we'll understand the difference between the levels of Torah, between the written Torah and the engraved Torah. Being the Torah is one with God, so the Torah exists on these levels. The written Torah is the Torah as it is emanating from. It's being derived from the Sefirot, where things are already written. So the Torah, basically, what is the Torah? It's the 10 Sefirot, which are the written, descending down into our world, into a legible document. That's what it's. The Torah is divine, is the entire infrastructure of the Sefirot. That's the Torah. But it's already the written, because it's already. But that very same Torah, because whatever is projected in Atzilus is first carved out in God himself. But over there it's Ein Sof. The Luchos, when God is giving the Torah and he gave Moshe the tablets, he's giving him the Torah higher than what Moshe was studying. Moshe was studying the written Torah, but God gave him tablets of the engraved Torah. Because hidden in Moshe's Torah is a higher level that he's not understanding, that he's not reading, but it's a deeper Torah. The difference. The Torah that is in writing, what does that mean? It means the higher Torah, God's engraved letters, the Torah as it is one with God, is too deep, too infinite, too beyond us. So what does God do? He garbs it in the writing. He's dressing it in a substance that can hold it. He's putting it into vessels, into containers, and he gives us the containers. Those are those letters. It became garbed in the letters of writing. The Torah itself is beyond those letters. Because the Torah is from the Yesod element of Chachma. That still has some radiance of the Ein Sof that is enclosed in Keser. It seems like the lights of Keser extend all the way into Chachma, into the Yesod element of it. And from there is where so here's the thing. The letters of Torah, that's the Chachma element. But the Torah itself, that's higher than the letters, that's the Or Ein Sof that is flowing into the letters. That's higher than the letters. That Hashem encloses himself in Chachma, but the Chachma is not him. The Chachma is like an entity. The wisdom is like an entity that he emanates, but it's not him. V'nikra b'shem Eden, and it's called Eden. Rakshanis lapsha bebina. Now, no, he was proving from Avaya b'Chachma that the Or Ein Sof is still shining in Chachma. And therefore, Torah itself is still the Or Ein Sof. And that level is called Eden. Meaning, we know, ever heard of Garden of Eden? This level is called Eden. It's utterly infinite, and that's why it says on Eden, no one saw it. No one can apprehend it. Actually, but however, it became enclosed in letters. That's the Bina. The Bina is the letters. Remember we said that Bina is called the book. Bina becomes enclosed in Bina. That's where the real letters are. So the letters of the Torah are a garment for the Torah. So these are the 53 books of the Torah. Not books, 53 parshiot of the Torah. That's why we say Gan Eden. The garden, which is the same word as 53, the garden, is made up of the letters, that inside it is contained Eden. Eden itself is Or Ein Sof, is infinite. We're not reading that infinity. We're reading the letters. And from the letters, we're absorbing also the Eden, but that's subconsciously. It's there in our Torah. The 50 parshiot of the Torah are drawn from the river that goes out of Eden. It says there's a river that goes out of Eden to water the garden. Which garden is it? The Torah is the garden. Every time you come to shul and they take out the Torah and you're reading, look deeper and see you're strolling in God's garden. The letters are the magnificent, incredible beauty of the garden. But there is water that's watering the garden. The water is the waters of Eden. So when you experience a garden, you're not experiencing the water. The water is but the water is the life force of the garden. Everything in the garden is only there because there is water. There is a moisture there. There is something beyond the green leaves and the fruits and there's the Yesod HaMayim, the water that's there. Omna Maluchos, that's the Torah Shebiksav, that's the written Torah. Omna Maluchos, but the Luchos, Sharsham Mebchinas Keser Elyon. The luchot are plugged in and rooted in the supernal crown. V'zeu inyan aseres adibros. That's the 10 commandments. Shenitnu b'chag HaShavuos. It was given to us on the holiday of Shavuot. Why? Why on Shavuot we got the 10 commandments? Because Shavuot, God gave us the crown. We know that the whole holiday of Shavuot is after 7 weeks. The 50th day. 50th day is the crown, the Keter. Shavuos is all the revelation of the crown. Which means we're connecting to the Torah, not on the level where we read letters. We're connecting to the Torah beyond its letters. Beyond its written letters. We're connecting to the Torah on the level of engraved letters. Essential is the essence of the divine, of the Or Ein Sof. Visha'azu is Galus Vamshachas HaKeser, because on Shavuot is the revelation and the drawing of the crown, Erech Anpin Va'atik Yoimin, from the levels of Erech Anpin and the long face and the Ancient of Days Mamish Bizah. The levels of Erech Anpin and Atik Yomin from the crown is drawn down into Atzilus. And through Atzilus, which is the Ze'er Anpin, from the Sefirot, it's given to each and every one of us down here. As explained in Eitz Chaim. That's why it says when the Jews received the Torah, God said Nasa v'Nishma, they got 2 crowns. Shavuos is the holiday of the crowns. Because the entire time of Sefirah to Omer, we are developing the mochin, we're developing the mind. After we have a mind, we place the crown on top of the head. Remember we said earlier that when you have a conceived intelligence and that becomes a vessel for a whole new infusion from above, a new light that comes and crowns it, what you've ever known, and suddenly a whole infinite higher depth, it's the same idea. In Sefirah to Omer, we're developing the mochen of Ze'er Anpin, Bashlamas mochen da Abba ve'ima, hamislapshem bezah, by drawing down the mochen of father and mother of Chachma and Bina into Ze'er Anpin. Gadlus Rishon ve'Gadlus Sheni, the first Gadlus, the first mochen that is pumped is the first night of Pesach. And then throughout the days of Sefirah, we're working on on developing Gadlus Sheni, the second Gadlus. And we mature. We're not going to go into that meaning now. Ach b'Shavuos. But when Shavuos comes, Meir by B'chines Gilgalta. On Shavuos, in the Ze'er Anpin, this is the formula that the Kabbalists say, it is shining in the Ze'er Anpin, the Keter, the crown. Gilgolas means the crown. Shu B'chines HaKeser, which is the crown. Shemakabel Me'erech Anpin va'atik yoim mamish, which the Ze'er Anpin is then receiving a crown from Keser itself, va'az dafka nitnu, and that's why we couldn't get the Luchos only on Shavuos, because the luchot, the engraved letters, is the revelation of Keser. That's when the two luchos were given. Now it's interesting. How many letters are there in the Aseres Adibros? Or how many words? I think letters. 620. Gematria Keser. Because the Aseres Adibros engraved on the luchos is Keser, which is the 620. That's why the letters, God didn't give Moshe a document. He gave him an engraved stone because that was reflecting that God is connecting to us and transmitting to us the Torah on the level of engraved, which means on a level which is completely one with the Ein Sof. The engraved letters. Like it is in the level of Keter, where God is engraving in himself. That's why there's also 620 letters in the 10 Commandments. Communion Keser, which is the same numeric value as Keser. Parshas Emor, Daf Tzadik Vav Amud Beis. Uberabos Nosoi Parsha Yud Gimel Isa. Tariag oisias yeshmin anoichi ad asher l'reyecha. It actually says in a Midrash Rabbah as well. It says there are 613 letters from anochi until the words l'reyecha, which is the last word of Aseres Adibros. There's 613 letters, v'shiva yaserois, and 7 extra ones. Keneget shivas yemei bereshis, corresponding to the 6 days of creation. So you take 7 plus other places it says it connects to the 7 rabbinic commandments. Here it says it connects to the 7 days of creation. At kan l'shoynoi, this is the word of the Midrash. So now based on that, we understand the loftiness of Shavuos. And Be'ezer Hashem, next week, Parshas Bechukosei, we're going to begin explaining the pasuk in Bechukosei Teilechu. If in my statues you will go. We'll learn it on Thursday of the week of Parshas Bechukosei. Next week, we're going to continue this mimer, and we're going to finish Be'ezrat Hashem, the conclusion of this discourse. We're going to start on time, so we're going to have a little more time, because today we started a little late because of various different challenges. We're starting at 9, but today we start at 9:45. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It was very, very deep stuff. And this Hashem, we're going to try to put this one down next week. Okay, thank you. Everyone have a wonderful Shabbos and a beautiful